thank you very much for having me today on your session. I will be talking about the recovery manager and basically how to start with the recovery manager and how to move forward. This presentation is one of two presentations I did in the past about recovery manager. And so if you are interested in, you can find the slides also from the advanced session in the internet. This is as a whole team of the groundbreakers is a basically introduction to RMAN. Let me skip the slide about me. There was already introduction. Just slide about Oracle ACE program. It's a program for promoting Oracle community. There are 3 tiers of Oracle ACE program. If you are interested in helping with Oracle community, if you are interested in working with Oracle and the user groups, I really encourage you to join the program. Okay, so let's start with the problems we have to solve with Oracle database. Not only with Oracle, but we focus on that. So if you're doing an online backup of database, you can have some data issues. So basically your database not necessarily will be consistent because you got ongoing writes to the database. So that's the one problem you have to resolve when you're doing the backups. The other one is that database is writing the database blocks, which not necessarily are the size of the operating system blocks. So it may happen then if the tool is not aware of the database blocks, it can basically read the blocks which are from different writes of the database. So that was the problem with Oracle backups before RMAN has been introduced in Oracle 8. And Oracle basically introduced RMAN to address the issues with data, with the lack of consistency of the data, and also to basically resolve the problem of the fractured blocks. So how RMAN works. So if you imagine having your database servers with the database, on the other side, we have RMAN client, which may be on the same server than we're using IPC. It can be the remote host when we're using network. And once we set up the connection between the RMAN client and the RMAN server, the normal Oracle background server has been started. And basically, it has access to your location when you put the backup. It can be the file system or it can be the tape. So RMAN is pretty clever how we deal with that, because RMAN is allocating so-called channel, and the channel basically is defining when RMAN has to send data. So regardless if you are using the type library, is basically vendor independent. If the vendor is providing the library for RMAN, all the scripts and everything looks the same. So the couple of things to remember. Recovery Manager, RMAN, is a part of the Oracle kernel. So it's basically a part of the database. It has been delivered together with your database, and you don't need to install anything else to start using Recovery Manager. It has PL/SQL API. You don't need to use that. You can use a Recovery Manager client, which is basically translating your scripts into the PL/SQL API. But if you really want to, for whatever reason, you can also use PL/SQL directly to basically start using Recovery Manager. So, okay, I already talked about a channel. So the channel is something which is very crucial for Recovery Manager. It's a connection which is done between the server process and the location when the backup will be written. So if you remember that slide, your RMAN client can connect to your database over the network. It doesn't mean then your channel is going over that network. The channel will be always created between the server process and the location. So what location we have for channels? It can be a disk that is built in. So since day 0, when you install Oracle binaries, you have a channel type disk installed. And there's other channel called SBT tape, which basically can use any third-party library which is defined and installed with your backup vendor. So it's very important to understand that even if you connect your client over the network, the channel is always created on the database server. The background process, starting like a normal Oracle process, is creating the channel. By default, it's creating channel to the disk. So basically, you can create a backup to the disk without any additional software. Channel behavior should be identical. Well, it's not always the truth. There are slight different with the channel behavior, and this also depends on the media manager. If you are interested what the difference are, I will mention a couple of those in the next slides. You can basically go and see the MetaLink node, my Oracle support node with this number, and you will see what exactly the difference are and which media managers are supported for what features of the channel. So that's about the initial concept of RMAN channel. And now let's talk what kind of backups we can do. So basically, there are two different kinds of backups RMAN can provide. One is the backup set format, and the other is an image copy. What the difference are? The image copy is, technically speaking, one-to-one copy of your data file created in a different location. Once the backup set is basically a RMAN specific format, which allows you to compress that or basically skip some blocks. So the difference will look like pretty much like this. If you imagine what you can see is your data file. So we have a blocks between 1 and 15. So we have a 15 blocks of your data file. If we do a backup set backup, RMAN will take the blocks, but it will skip the blocks which are empty. So as the result, you will see we will have not all blocks, but the result will contain only blocks which has been never used. So if you create an empty table space and you run the RMAN backup, basically RMAN doesn't need to backup empty data files because those blocks has no information. They can be recreated from scratch without losing any information. Although if you use the image copy backup type, as the result of backup using image copy, you will get a file which is one-to-one of your production data file. RMAN is basically a tool to doing physical backups. Because it's a physical backup, what is the level of information we can backup using that tool? We can backup an entire database, we can backup entire table space, or we can backup a selected data file. We cannot basically backup a logical object like table or index. Because we cannot backup on the logical level, we cannot also restore on the logical level. Well, Oracle is, in the Oracle documentation, you can find that you can actually restore a table from RMAN. And that's true, but that means that there is additional work needed. So first of all, RMAN will recover physically entire database or couple of table spaces to the auxiliary location. And then when this is completed, it will extract the missing data or missing tables. You cannot extract a table directly from the RMAN data files. I would like to have this functionality. I would like Oracle to create that kind of recovery or restore at some stage, but it's not the case. Every time you are doing a logical object recovery, like a restore table, you have to restore entire data files, for example, entire table space with that single table, and then export, import it. RMAN will do it automatically, but you still have to have resources to do so. So just to make some summary, RMAN is a tool for backing up database on the physical level. Is working on the database server, and it's using a channel to send a data from database into the location. So how are you controlling RMAN? As I said at the beginning, there's a client tool, and the client tool allows you to create scripts. You don't need to learn API, how the PL/SQL works. You can start using very simple scripts. But there is a couple of challenges when you start creating the scripts. The first challenge is how you can call the scripts for the command line. So if you're a Unix admin or Unix admin, that's pretty much what you can do. Is the RMAN is your client name, target, / that's the connection string. And then you have end of file, mark, and you're just putting one command after another. And that will work. That's a normal way of creating the scripts. If you look into RMAN documentation, you can see that actually you can create a set of scripts. You can combine set of commands into the run block. And if you add this run with the brackets and you put the commands there, both scripts will behave differently. So basically, what will happen is on the left-hand side, without the run command, if the first command will fail, the second one will be still executed. If you have a run, it's defining entire block. So if the first command of the block will fail, the second will be never executed. So you have to keep this in mind because it may actually change your script behavior if you're using the run or not. To make this a little bit more complicated, if you create a file with similar content, yeah, so it's we have the command 1 and 2 and run and command 1 and 2, but if you call the scripts using the command line and the script name, both actually work in the same way. So it's a little bit at the beginning confusing how it's working, but you have to keep in mind is that when you're creating the script, if you start mixing a way how you're calling the scripts using the inline commands or using the scripts and the files, it may behave differently. So it's very important to double check if it's working as expected, if it's working how you expect this to work. So a couple of things about the scripts. Usually I call my scripts pretty much the same way. So it's a RMAN target / or connection string, comment file, log file, append, we just keep appending to the log file, and I add the check syntax as well. So it basically can check a syntax of the script before starting to executing the script. You can, I know it's a quite long command, but basically it gives you a lot of additional information if something will happen. Okay, so that was the introduction really to RMAN. What I would like to highlight is that RMAN will work on the database level. The RMAN, what you see, the command RMAN is actually the client is not doing a real work. The real work is done by the server itself. So it's background process started by Oracle. So you can actually connect to a remote server and run the backup. You don't need to be on the server to run the backup. And okay, let's move forward and talk about the first backup and first restore. So How we can connect, as I showed you at the beginning, we can connect locally when we're doing the RMAN target, or we can connect remotely. It is more important right now to have a remote connection if you want to backup on the PDB level, because to backup on the PDB level, we have to always connect with the connection string. We cannot connect really with Oracle SID anymore. But from the operation point of view, it doesn't really matter how we connect. The server will basically run the backup anyway. Okay, so if you connect to your database and you just specify backup database as the first command you can use, and if you are connected to the non-PDB database, basically what we see is that we are starting backup, we are allocating the channel, and that's it. RMAN doesn't need to know what to backup. We told already a database, so we don't need to specify the data files or anything like this. RMAN will read the control file, and it will know what to backup. When it's finished, it's basically creating, you will see, okay, my backup has been created into my fast recovery area. That's my database name. Backup set, that's the backup type, and there is a date when it was created and how long it takes to backup a database. Similar if you connect to the CDB, if you connect to the container database, if you just specify backup database, it's assumed that it will basically backup everything. So what doesn't mean everything? It will backup the CDB, but also it will backup a PDB. So you see, we are accessing the system01 DBF file on the CDB level and on the PDB level. So you don't need to specify, you don't need to worry how many PDBs do you have. Single command backup database will backup everything you need. Okay, what happens if you connect to the PDB only? Again, backup database is the same command again, and this time we backup only the PDB, which is, from the script perspective, it's very nice to have the same simple command backup database, and basically depend where you connect, you see a slightly different output. We always backup a database, but depend where we connect, the granularity of backup will be different. So if you backup on the PDB level, the backup is going again to the fast recovery area, but there will be a GUID of your PDB used in the output. Okay, if you want to backup a particular PDB, once you are connected to the CDB, a syntax is slightly different. You have to backup pluggable database and the database name, which means that you backup only this one PDB. And again, if you run this, basically it will backup only one PDB from the CDB level. But you see that the syntax is slightly different. Now we have to add what we want to backup. Otherwise, if you just specify backup database, entire CDB plus all PDBs will be backup. Okay, so we have a database. What else do we need? As I said at the beginning, to make a backup, the problem with the database is that you always have inconsistent data. So when you start RMAN backup and it takes, I don't know, 1 hour, some of the data files has been changed over the time. So the beginning of the data file and the end of the data file may be from a different point in times. Oracle is pretty good with managing these kind of problems, especially, and that's the requirement, if you have your archive log enabled. So basically, if you want to run online backups of your database, the database has to be in the archive log mode. What does it mean is that you need to have your archive logs from the duration of your backup. If your backup is running for 1 hour, you need at least 1 hour of archive log backup together with your data files to make sure that you can recover data files and make them consistent at the particular point in time. With RMAN, it's pretty easy. I can do backup archive log all. I don't really care which archive logs I want to backup. I want to backup all archive logs which are on my database server. When you start this command, it will start looking into your control file and seeing what archive logs are still on the server, and it starts backing up those archive logs. One very important thing is that when you run the command, it's actually switch the current redo logs to the next one. So the latest transaction will be included in your backup. It wasn't the case in the first implementation of RMAN. I believe it was added on the version 9 or 10. Anyway, long time ago. And right now, if you backup archive log all, the first thing RMAN will do will basically is switch your redo logs. Okay, what else do we need to have a successful backup? Well, at the end of the day, all information about the backups, what we did so far and what has been backup are going into our control file. That's the main repository of the recovery manager. And also we need a control file to know how database looks like. So the last option you have to do to have a successful backup of your entire database, we have to backup our control file. The syntax is the backup current control file. And basically when you run the command, RMAN will create a read-only copy of the control file, like a snapshot of this, and it will create a backup of the control file in the location you specified. Because RMAN is using control file as a metadata for all your information, typically, if you have pretty new database, I mean pretty new everything which is higher than 12, by default, auto backup of the control file will be enabled, which means that after you run any type of backup, you can backup database, you can backup archive logs, or you can backup the control file. After each of these operations, at the end of the operation, RMAN automatically will create control file backup. That means those information about your backup location, everything you did, are automatically backed up by auto backup of the control file. The location of the auto backup of the control file is the fast recovery area. You can basically put this into other location as well. Why this is important? When you're doing the recovery, information from control file are important for RMAN to find out where are the backup sets, where the files has been located, when the backup has been located. So we need this to restore our database. If you don't have the auto backup control file, you should pretty much finish any type of backup with backing up a control file as a last operation. So you can check your backup file, auto backup file configuration by connecting to RMAN and typing show control file auto backup. And in my configuration is off. You can basically make this on, and that means that the default location will be used, and you can control the auto backup by using this option. So configure control file auto backup on or off. When you're configuring the location of the control file, you can specify the format when the format, basically a format is showing you the path and the file name where the backup will be created. If the backup is created on the disk, for tape is a name of the backup set. So you can use the format to specify location of your backup file, auto backup control file, but you can also use format to basically specify a location for any backup you want. You can basically create a default location. So in the format parameter, you can use the options like %s and %d and %u, which has some meaning. Is a %d is a database name, %u is a unique string if you want to have names unique. So you can imagine having a script like this, and that script actually can work for any database. It will create in the location/backup starting with BCK for the database backup, and then after that you will get the database name, the next backup set number, and the unique value at the end. Plus I add a tag first backup, and that's my first backup of that database. And you can run this against any database actually, and you will get a unique files based on this. So you can see how powerful RMAN is. You can use a very simple file, very simple script to back up almost any database. And that's, I would say, that's probably starting point of any backup script I'm using at work. What is you can see that if you configure Enterprise Manager and if you configure backup using Enterprise Manager, you will see a slightly different script. And this script actually is using a different type of backups. It will use the incremental backup, but it also allows you to keep your copy of your backup set basically up to date to the last backup. So what this script will do, it will start recovering your database from the last incremental backup, and if it does not exist, it create a fresh incremental backup. That's a slightly different approach than usually you're doing with the backup. This means that those scripts are doing the image copy backups first of all. So you got in the FRA, you got 1-to-1 a size of the production database, and that backup will be kept up to date to the last incremental backup done. Personally, I'm not big fan of this kind of backup, especially that it's taking much more space, and well, I just prefer having the backup set in the location, maybe outside of FRA as well. But anyway, you will see that this script is a default one created by Enterprise Manager. So maybe you have to take a look into that if you want to make sure that you're using something you understand or something you want to use for backup. You can, of course, change the default Enterprise Manager script and still start using a normal script, this kind of script from the Enterprise Manager to create your backup. Right. So we have a backup, and now we have to basically do the restore. I actually have to speed up a little bit, but okay. So first of all, you have to test your backups. If you are not testing your backups, you end up with basically this. You know that basically that means that the condition of your backup is unknown until you try to restore it. And that's true because even if you have your backups and you know that the backups are there, maybe that backup is completed, but that backup never be restored. So you don't know if that backup will be ever restored. So it's very important that part of your daily procedure, or at least weekly procedure, you are testing a recovery of your backup. So there are a couple of different restore type needed. So first of all, I will guide you through a first restore for the very simple situation when actually we lost a data files. We have all the control file, we have the redo logs, but we lose one or more data files, which means that database is still in the mount state because we have control file and we have to restore only data files. It's pretty easy with RMAN. You still can connect to RMAN, and what you have to do is basically type restore database. And magically, RMAN will find out with your control file, what is the last backup of your data files, find this location, find the backup, restore data file, and that's it. Then we have to do the recovery because maybe those files need some archive logs to be consistent. You just type recover database, and again, we start looking for the archive logs we need to use for restore. Some of those files may be already on the disk because they are still there. Some of those may be restored from the backup. But again, RMAN will find out this and will do the recovery database for you. At the end, altered database open and our database is up and running again. And since version 12, you can run any command with RMAN as well without putting this into the SQL syntax anymore. So basically, RMAN pretty much understands SQL as well. I'm not saying replace SQL Plus with RMAN, but you can run the basic commands like alter database open. So you see there, I was not even aware where my backups are, how I should access those backups. RMAN knows everything for me because I have a control file with the information. So you can create a script, restore database, recover database, SQL, alter database open. If you want to put a SQL command in the run statement, you have to use this SQL syntax. And that means that script can be used against anything to automatically restore from the situation when you lost a data files. So this will work also if you are connecting to PDB. And that's very powerful. So what we go so far, backup database, backup archive logs, backup current control file, and restore and recover database. But so far we did everything up to the last redo logs, so basically no data lost. From the backup perspective, very often we have to do point-in-time recovery, and that's a little bit more tricky. So what is the point-in-time recovery? It's pretty easy if we are doing this for the whole database, especially non-CDB. If you're doing this for the CDB plus all PDBs, or if you have PDB with the local undo. But keep in mind that archive logs are still shared across all CDB. So basically, it's a little bit more complicated than it should be. But if we have entire database and we're doing point-in-time recovery, basically, we're just moving the database back. Yeah, so we were in the one point, we just restore from the previous backup, everything is there, everything is consistent at this point in time. What is more complicated, if you want to restore a table space or the single table or a single PDB to the point in time in the past. You still can do that, but you will need additional resources like memory and CPU and the disk. Why? Because we have our database in that point, in the black point in time. We have to restore a part of the database to the point in time you want. It can be one PDB, it can be one table space, it could be one table. And once we do that, then we have to, and that will take some time and resources because we have to restore system and sysawigs and undo plus the table spaces we need. And then we have to use, I don't know, transport table, table space, export, import, whatever to move data from this blue point in time into black point in time. And basically after that, we have our data at the point in the past. And we did a partial recovery of our database. So how we can specify the partial recovery, how we can specify point in time? Oh, there's a couple of ways. We can do that by setting up the log sequence number and the thread number. We can specify, I think that's the most human format, is basically use the date. I would encourage to use today, then basically put the proper format, or you have to set NLS date format to make sure that your script will actually understand your date format. Or you can specify the SCN number as well and restore until SCN. What you can restore in part, what you can do as a point in time recovery, you can recover a table space, you can recover a table. I told you that you cannot recover a table directly from the backup. That's true. This is why you have to specify auxiliary destination. That will be the file system which will be used for additional database to be restored, and there will be additional instance which is started during that process. So you have to have CPU memory and the disk space to do the table restore, but it is possible to do. Okay, set until, recover table space until, recover table until. Okay, that is point in time recovery. My last set of slides is basically a full bare metal recovery. So we lost everything, and what we have is just this. We have 4 files with backup. We have backup of my database, backup of the archive logs, backup of the control file, and the backup of the SP file. So how this works, what we need to start recovery? We need to create a simple init.ora file when we have a database name, nothing else. With that, we can start the instance in the non-mode state using that SP file. And from that point, we will start using Recovery Manager. And first of all, we will restore our SP file. So we restore our parameter file from the location. We have to provide the location. So it's important when you're backing up your SP file and control file to have some names which means something, like BCK, SP file, and database name. That's something I can understand as a human being and find out, okay, I would like to restore from that file. Once you have your SP file restored, you can basically restart your instance using your own old SP file parameters. And that means that we have some control files already located in some places. So next will be basically, we have to start recovering a control file. So again, I have to specify the file location, and that's the last point. I have to specify the file location. I would like to restore my control file from BCK control file. Once I did it and I mount my database, now I can do a very simple thing. I can list all the information I need about the database. For example, I would like to know what is the latest point in time I can recover that database into. That latest point in time will be the last archive log I have. So if I list off the archive logs, you will see the last one is number 55, and I can recover until log sequence 56, because that's the next. Until 56 means the 55 will be the last log which I restore. And if I create that script and run it, well, I can create basically also the full script, as you can see, combine all the steps I did before. And when I run the script, I will basically have my database restored to the point in time. If I don't know this, if I don't care about that information, I just want to restore to the latest possible archive log, I can go with that script when I have restored database, recover database, and there is no information whatsoever about point in time recovery. So what will happen if I run that script? That script can end up with the error. Why we got this error? You can see on the screen that it was trying to recover from the archive logs sequence 56. We know it does not exist because it was not in the backup. And that is expected error. And I don't worry about that error because I know that sequence 56 does not exist, so recovery just stopped. If I do alter database open reset logs, I have access to my database again, which basically means if you using RMAN, you may see that error a couple of times, and don't worry about that. It's something you are expecting at this point in time if you don't specify when RMAN has to finish a recovery. Okay, very quickly, issues.
Just 1 second, Marcin.
Yep.
So another 5 minutes to finish the question, the presentation, then 5 minutes for questions. There are 11 until now.
Okay, thank you. So what are common issues with RMAN? A syntax of scripts is quite weird. So you can have a lot of syntax errors when you start creating your scripts. The easy way to find out what is wrong is basically run the partial command. Like in my case, I just type backup, and the error message is, I don't know why you have the semicolon at the end. I was expecting archive log, auxiliary, or something like this. So it gives you some advices what should be a next word which was not recognized by the script itself. Over the time, you will find out how to read that. And over the time, you'll also find out how easy it is to create those scripts. But don't be afraid of these error messages. They looks very weird, but actually at the end of the day, they give you some advices what was wrong. By default, unfortunately, the RMAN is printing the date in the format of the default NLS date format, which is American America format, our favorite. So we got a date, month, and a year. I would really encourage you to set NLS date format at the beginning of every script. So instead of 5 December 2017, you will get a slightly better format of the date with basically with the time as well, which may be important for you to read that. So if you're looking into the scripts, NLS date format should be the part of each backup script. There is something which is pretty annoying if you're cloning databases, especially if you have non-production database and you're restoring in the same place your database over and over. So you have your production database, you have your non-production database, and you are using a production backup to restore into non-production database over and over again. So you have the same DB ID and stuff like this. When RMAN if the database was created before and you have a FRA which has some data files with the same DB ID, it may happen then when you start a new restore, RMAN gives you the information, well, I don't know if there is any backup. I cannot find anything. That may happen because when you're starting a database, Oracle is doing FRA scan, is scanning your fast recovery area, looking for any new copies of the archive logs or redo logs. If it finds it, it basically switches the incarnation of the database. There is Metalink node, my Oracle support node as well for that. So sometimes you can see, okay, you just restore the backup, you run restore database, and you got the information, oh, no backup can be found. You can switch the incarnation you can list the incarnation, you can switch the incarnation by using also the reset database command. So you have the list. So for example, on my slide, you can see I list the backup set. I list all the backups of my system file. I didn't find any. Then I change the incarnation to the different one, and actually magically, it found the missing file.
Marcin,
okay, that's it.
Super.
That was the last slide. Great. So
perfect.
Let's take a look into the questions. Okay. if it's possible in RMAN script to return successful return code, even if there was an error at previous commands. Cross-check and delete expiry block had errors, but main backup. I don't think so. RMAN is returning the basically last command which has been executed is driving the error code. If you have a different logic in RMAN, and I would rather split the script into a couple of scripts to run this, you know, as a different script other than the one script, because yeah, the last command will drive the last command which has been executed will drive the error code of the RMAN script. Next question, is there a way to execute RMAN command and make pull output from the, like from the SQL script? The RMAN command. I'm not aware of any command which force RMAN to echo the commands other than, well, looking into timestamps. Sorry, I don't know the answer if there is any way to force RMAN to echo the RMAN commands. Okay, well, the next question. Okay, what are pros and cons of the backup set and the image copies? Okay, backup set and image copies. So the only advantage of image copy I see is if you have your image copy on the disk which are fast enough to be part of the production, you can very easily switch between your production data file to your image copy data file. That basically you can restore your missing data file in seconds because you are logically switched to a different file. But that file will be served from the fast recovery area or whatever area you have your backup in. So if you are backing up to the fast devices, which is probably more and more often those days with having full flash arrays, that is the advantage of having the image copies. The other advantage of having image copies is you can apply the incremental backups on top of that. So basically you can keep those data files close to the production. Backup set are, for me, for longer term backups, like using the type and anything outside of this same array. Okay, so for me, if you are doing the backup, you should not do this to the same set of disks, which means FRA is not necessarily your backup location. Right. Okay, it is possible to make database backup on the jump server with connection to the remote database. Of course it is. You can run the RMAN script for, you can, if you have an RMAN command there, you can run the backup, but your RMAN client has to be connected to your database. And the backup will run on the database, but the script will be running on the jump server. For sure, you can do that. If the connection between jump server and the database server will be closed, your backup will fail. Well, if not entire script has been executed, but yeah, it is possible.
3 more minutes.
Okay. What is the best way to backup if the storage is not an issue? The best way to backup is depend what you need. The best backup probably is to use RMAN backup set for long-term backups. If your storage has some kind of snapshot technology, I would go into that, but fully test that. It's really question what is a goal of backing up the database. It's that for the legal reason, if you have to keep a database for 5 years, probably you don't want to put this on the disk. You want to put this into, I don't know, AWS S3 or Oracle objects in the cloud or something like this, or maybe on the tape. And there is no good answer to the best way to backup. It all depends on the requirements.